Hey, everybody. Welcome to Todd-versations today. I am absolutely thrilled with the gentleman that I have on this show. He is something else, and it's an honor to be in his presence, as I like to say. He is so inspirational. He has done so much for this world. Everybody, I'm going to introduce him real quick. Stephen Ritz is here from the Green Bronx Machine. But Stephen, before, say hello to everybody. Let's do that. Let's get you a hello.
Good morning, everybody. Greetings from the Riviera, El Sur de Bronx. Buenos dias, people.
I love it. But before we get going, I normally have people introduce themselves and give a quick bio, but I'm not doing that this time. I'm going to read it because I think it's so impactful, and I want people to know exactly where this conversation is heading today. One of my most favorite things you've ever said: give love, get love, keep it moving. Stephen Ritz is an internationally acclaimed, award-winning educator, author of the best-selling book, Power of the Plant, which we're going to get into today, and the founder of the Green Bronx Machine. Known as America's favorite teacher and a top 10 finalist for the Global Teacher Prize, Stephen is responsible for creating the first edible classroom in the world, everybody, the world. And we're sitting in it today. He and the students have grown hundreds of thousands of pounds of vegetables in the South Bronx. They've been celebrated at the White House 3 times, featured on the cover of Time for Kids, are now a subject of a new feature documentary called Generation Growth. Folks, a replica of his classroom was installed and is available to everybody at the U.S. Botanical Gardens in Washington, D.C. His curriculum is being used in hundreds of schools across the United States and internationally, from Colombia to Dubai, Canada to Doha. He is known as the CEO of Bronx County, which is also known as the Chief Internal Optimist. Please welcome, open your hearts to a true inspiration. Everybody, please welcome Mr. Stephen Ritz. Welcome, my brother.
Thanks. I can't wait to meet this guy. What's cooking, Todd?
You and me this morning, brother. You and me this morning. Not too many people are going to roll my big ass out of bed at 2:30 in the morning to come talk to you, but I did it because I wanted to. That's how important you are to me.
Well,
so my attitude,
kindly.
Absolutely. My brother, my attitude today, I'm going to tell you right now, let us turn up the beat, my brother. That's what we're talking about today.
I think I've heard that before.
I know you have. You were the one that said it.
Man, I'm so excited, Todd. I may actually have to get out there and wet my plants. Come on.
Love it. You have done something that literally nobody else has done. You were a trailblazer. Your story is so inspiring. Your book is amazing to me. I mean, it is so open, honest, transparent, and we're going to get into that a little bit, but it is fascinating. Your work and what you've done with kids is amazing. And so I want to take people through the journey a little bit of who you are and what you're all about. And I want to start off, as I normally do, with about 913,000 questions, because it was hard, man. Your life has got something going on, brother. I tried to trim it down to 850, but I couldn't get there. But I want to start off with, a little bit as we dive into this, and with a couple of things that you've said. And I would like for you to kind of share with the audience what that means to you. And one of them is children should not have to leave their neighborhood to live, learn, and earn. Share with me what that means to you.
Well, what does it mean? Understand, I come from a community that is first in everything bad and last in everything good. So, the whole idea is to go to school, make a life and get the hell away and go somewhere better. But what if we decided that we didn't have to go somewhere to live somewhere better, that we could do it right where we live, that, this is ground zero for improvement? That would make for a better, brighter planet and a far more inclusive future for everybody.
100%.
So I 100% believe that people should not have to leave their neighborhood to live, learn, and earn in a better one. And people should have to come here and piratize ours to perpetuate the status quo. So we are the ones we're waiting for. There are 99 problems in the South Bronx for sure, but growing food is no longer one. And we are going to take ownership of our schools, our communities, and our lives. And it's absolutely possible to do that.
Yeah, 100%. And you definitely, you are pulling that magic trick off in a big way, in a very public way. So let's talk a little bit about how this happened. Can you kind of just share the story of the daffodils behind the radiator and kind of frame, because that was really that was really like the light bulb moment in a lot of ways of like, I got something here. I mean, you want to talk about going down a path and somebody saying, hey, Stephen, I just throw you a little right curve. follow that and watch what happens. And that's exactly what you did. So share a little bit about the daffodils and that scuffle and how it changed your life. And then we'll get a little bit deeper about everything
it's
else.
important to realize for people who don't know, I have no science background. I'm not a science teacher by trade. I'm not a scientist. In fact, truth be told, I was asked to graduate elsewhere during my collegial career. So
I've heard that before.
Right. So I'm an accidental success.
Thanks for joining the Todd-versation. And now, a word from our sponsor. This episode of Todd-versations is brought to you by Viva Tierra. Viva Tierra, organic to the core. Connect with us at vivatierra.com.
But, regarding the specific moment with these daffodils, in 2004, after a tremendous tragedy in my life, my wife and I lost a child. I wound up taking a job that was just the closest to home. I went into the transfer system and just looked where I lived and put in for a transfer. I could walk to work, so I could circle the wagons around my family, so to speak.
Sure.
And literally just, unbeknownst to me, I picked one of the worst schools in all of New York City. I'll give you some context. A 17% graduation rate, 256 felonies committed annually in the building, 48 school safety agents, 18 armed police officers in the building daily. We had a police precinct in the building. Welcome to the neighborhood. There's nowhere to go but up. And lo and behold, I was charged with teaching 17 kids, a bulk of whom had a bunch, all over age, all undercredited, all with a bulk of additional baggage. I was charged with teaching them science in a little blue room. They're like, hey, go teach them science. I'll date myself. If you remember Thomas Dolby, they blinded me with science. Science! Great. What the hell do I know about science? I was still waiting for the Knicks to call me back. So I put out this frantic call on the internet, with my AOL account to every single person I know. Dear friends, family, colleagues, and even those of you who don't like me, I need some help. I've been charged with teaching 17 children science, and I know nothing about science. Send me a microscope. Send me a pad. I mean, there weren't even iPads back then. Send me a microscope, a computer, an experiment. Anything, please, dear God. And I got nothing. Nothing. Al Gore and the internet were not working too well that day. Anyway, long made short, a few weeks later, I'm sitting in class with the kids and we're doing stuff like bread mold experiments. It was a real kind of Socratic class. I just wanted to give these young people some voice, some advocacy, and some ownership of their lives and of what they were doing in school. So it was a collegial group of kids. We just, much like me, I didn't know what the hell we were doing. I had never done this. So over the microphone, over the loudspeaker, Mr. Ritz, come to the office, please. And I'm like, uh-oh, he's in trouble. And I'm like,
already.
Yeah. Oh, no, there goes our teacher. He did something. He was, so he's in trouble. So I go running down to the principal's office. I walk in and there's the secretary. He's like, Mr. Ritz, you got this box. And I'm like, yes, on it, it says Steve Ritz, science teacher, Walton High School. I'm like, yes, there is a God. The internet worked. Thank you, Al Gore. And like a kid on Christmas, I'm looking at this big box and right there in the principal's office, I can't even control myself. I rip it open right in front of the secretary. And inside are these little teeny tiny things. They look like onions. And man, I'm just as deflated can be. I'm like, WTF? And you can figure out, as the kids would say, What is this? This is just someone's playing a joke. I'm going to bring these things to class. The kids are going to throw them at me. This is just a nightmare. Like, what am I going to make? 3,000 pounds of salsa with the kids? Welcome to science. So, I walk out of the office carrying the box, dejected as hell. That my head between my legs, I go back to my classroom, the blue room, if you will, with the big stinky radiator. It's an old classroom, 100-year-old building.
Yeah.
I take this box and I throw it behind the radiator, behind the window, and I flat out forget about it. I'll leave it here, whatever, exactly, another day. anyway, we start doing some stuff in school. I'm reaching out to community groups and trying to connect my kids to living wage employment, because you can't talk to me about education if you're not talking to me about opportunity. I'm trying to connect these kids to resources and to the community in meaningful ways. And it was a tough group, man. Make no doubt about it. Tough kids, tough group, tough times.
No doubt.
Anyway, all of a sudden, there's kind of like this anxiety brewing. This kid is making fun of a girl, or this girl, Carol, who's about big girl, 6 feet, 2 sleeves of tattoos, piercings. And this skinny little kid, Gonzalo, hits her right between the eyes with a joke about her mother. And the class goes wild. And I'm like in very slow motion. This is not good.
It's real now.
Yeah, my career is over. Carol gets up, jumps out of her seat, and goes running across the room. And I'm like, my career is definitely over. All of a sudden, I'm running across the room. Gonzalo gets up and goes reaching under the radiator. And then in real time, I'm thinking, my career is really over. It's a weapon. Something is coming out. This is going to be bad. All of a sudden, he sticks his hand under the radiator, comes out and comes up with a handful of flowers and starts waving them in Carol's face. And the whole class is like, OMG, WTF. Carol doesn't know what to do. She starts laughing and like, where did these flowers come from? So we go down and we look inside this deteriorated box. And inside this box are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of flowers. Those onions were not onions. They were daffodil bulbs, and they were sent to me by New Yorkers for parks to help commemorate 9/11. And so, I'm like, this is a teachable moment. We look inside the box and we realize we had been invited to come plant these bulbs. I just never got to it. I didn't do my due diligence, so to speak. But that moment became a movement. And my children, they're not children, they're young people. We went on to plant, I think, 15,000 bulbs across New York City to commemorate 9/11. Those bulbs continue to bloom here in the Bronx, up and down the Cross Bronx Expressway, across Marshall Loop Parkway. Millions of people have seen them. Each and every year they multiply. And it turns out that my students were invited to City Hall because everyone thought they were the honors program.
Right.
So that was the beginning of a movement. And it goes to show you that literally no one rises to low expectations, and that given the opportunity to engage children and young people in meaningful activities, they want to get involved. And it turned out that we actually went and planted those daffodil bulbs. We started doing urban restoration, ecological restoration, environmental remediation. And this was long before I knew about plants and food. It was just the beginning of the green roof movement and the environmental justice movement in New York City. And most importantly, of those 17 kids who were all overage and undercredited, some of whom had criminal justice issues, they all went on to graduate. And to this day, not one has returned to the criminal justice system. So that's the kind of multiplier effect. Those are the kind of seeds that we want to plant. Those are the opportunities that we believe in. And, the movement has taken off ever since. It took me a while to get to food, but we got there. We started with edibles and ornamentals and environmental remediation. But, I'm on the learning curve myself.
For sure. Well, like you say, you're not a farmer. You are now, but you weren't a farmer.
I'm a people farmer, man. I grow people.
Absolutely. And I think something that you also grow is love, right? I think that people learn to appreciate that with you. And one of the things that I think is powerful that you put down is that our job is to love children until they learn to love themselves. And that's a very, very powerful statement. How many kids do you think didn't fully understand love until they got involved in your program?
Listen, love has a lot of meanings for different people.
Sure.
I love my job. I love my wife. I love what I do daily. But, in terms of connecting kids and school, all the data in the world, and we're all data junkies now more than ever, but all the data points in the world point to one singular fact. Young people and even older people who have access to one kind, caring adult in the world will succeed. And I find that, it's not too expensive to care. It may be emotionally expensive, but, if you're willing to sit down and listen, and I do a lot of talking, but I've also become an adept listener on my journey, that if you're willing to sit down and let children know that they matter, that you're important, that things will get better, amazing things will happen. So yeah, my job is to love on them until they learn to love themselves. My job is to be a voice for the voiceless. My job is to fight for children who are born into situations that most people would not want to be caught dead in. That's who I advocate for. That's what I want to do. And I'm going to bring as many of them on my back and shoulders as possible and let them know that whenever they walk into my classroom, it's my job to turn that frown upside down and get us all to a better, brighter place.
Absolutely. When you teach kids about nature, you teach them to nurture. I think it's another powerful sentence. Share with me where that, what that means to you.
Well, listen, we teach kids, we are living in such now more than ever. We're living in a very disconnected and illusion-based world. But
words.
When you connect children to living things, those living things require care. They require empathy. They require kindness and consideration and compassion. And when you teach kids about those things, they find those traits within themselves. Whether it's taking care of a dog, a fish tank, or a plant. Now, the cool thing about plants is there's no poop to scoop, no floaters at the top of the tank, and nothing that eats their young. And I've never had to clean up after a plant. So
that's true.
To nurture and grow something greater is really something that is inherently kind. It's inherently patient. And guess what? Nature succeeds. So basically, if you pick the right plant, you're going to be successful no matter what. Everybody needs a little success and a lot more green in their lives.
Yeah, no doubt. I love that. All right, here we go. Tell us, what is the Green Bronx Machine?
Ooh,
that's a big question. I know who else to ask that question.
No, it's not. Green Bronx Machine was rooted in the belief that we are all Americans. We are not Americans. We're not Mexicans. We're not Dominicans. We're not African-American cans. We are Americans. And that through a local movement, we have the ability to move those who are apart from success to being a part of it in ways that benefit all. But in a sentence, we grow vegetables, our vegetables grow students, our students grow schools, and our schools grow happy, healthy, resilient communities and high-performing children who love eating fruits and vegetables.
For sure. They absolutely do. They absolutely
do. We're an academic program. The heart of our work, we started outdoors with urban gardens. We moved indoors. But we are an academic program rooted in curriculum, the art and science of growing vegetables, aligned to Common Core, Next Generation Science Standards, P21, and the Sustainable Development Goals. So what started as a workforce development program and an after-school club for disconnected kids has now become an absolute build-in. I'm not the salad guy. I'm not the garden guy. I'm not the eat healthy guy. I am the whole school guy. I am the guy that just happened to figure out how to put the garden. And for many kids, food is for everyone, food is a critical thing. And in our community, people are so food challenged. So it's a great thing to be able to do at the heart of all academic learning in a project-based, hands-on, highly manageable manner.
Yeah. Well, look, the inner cities are certainly an issue and a concern that I don't think people pay a lot of attention to when they think about food and nutrition. You go into a bodega and it's not going to be full of peaches and pears and plums. It's going to be, Four Locos and
look at this too.
Monster.
Even across America and rural communities, we are losing acres and acres and acres of farmland each and every year. The average age of the American farmer is going up, up, up. So the need to reconfigure how we grow food, where we grow food, how we distribute food is absolutely critical. And the way we're doing it is really degrading ourselves, our planet, and the environment. We are depleting our soils, we're depleting our resources. We have, agriculture in the food system is one of the biggest, forget cars. It's really food that is the biggest contributor to global warming. Food
Absolutely.
is also the biggest contributor to either our health or our lack of it. So when we start changing that, we start changing everything. So growing food is important in cities. It's important in the countries. Listen, I've been to places, and we highlight this in our documentary, Generation Growth, where there are no supermarkets in rural communities, where people are getting food in the gas station, in the drugstore. You can fuel your car, but you can't properly fuel your body and your mind. Big disconnect for me.
There is. You're 100%. And thinking about the food waste issue in this country, it's a big problem. It's one that we need to embrace. 80 billion pounds of food waste. 11% of the, greenhouse gases coming from food waste. And I'll tell you a stat that I've gotten. I keep saying this because I want people to understand how big of a problem it is. I got a little baseball I caught at a ball game I keep on my studio desk here. In the United States, food waste in our country is equivalent to every American throwing away 650 apples this size. That is a big problem. That is a big problem when there's hungry people. What's the Bronx like today versus when you started?
Well, let me be clear. The Bronx is no longer burning. We had a horrible fire, so I do want to acknowledge that. But, the typical notion of burnt out buildings, the kind of poverty pornography that was very prevalent in movies and media has long since gone. That doesn't mean that we don't have problems. So, for 7 years in a row, Robert Wood Johnson Foundation has identified the Bronx as the least healthy county in all of New York State. We certainly have the highest pockets of poverty, intergenerational poverty, unemployment, chronic underemployment, and low performing schools in all of New York City. Mm-hmm. That said, the Bronx has never looked better. Real estate values, for a variety of reasons, have gone through the roofs, and those vast swaths of burnt out buildings, abandoned buildings, and underutilized spaces have now become very highly populated. The Bronx has never looked better, but underneath that facade are still a lot of problems. Just you put a fancy painting up doesn't mean the house is solid. So people are living here, population is up, unemployment is down, although COVID changed all of that, but intergenerational poverty still exists. Chronic health issues, whether it is asthma, diabetes, juvenile heart disease, you name it, is through the roof. Substance abuse is through the roof. So it looks better, but like much of America, we are going through a crisis. So I don't want to say it is solely emblematic of the Bronx, but
right.
There is a Bronx in every city in America and every country in the world. But the Bronx is home to some of the most amazing people and beautiful opportunities in the world. And I want to highlight that. And I believe here in the Bronx, we are poised, ready, willing, and able to exploit our talent and diversity in ways people have never imagined. We are the ones we are waiting for. And let me be clear, marginalized and underserved communities like ours, the greatest natural resource in the world is the young talent residing in communities like mine. So the Bronx is the most fertile soil in the world for innovation, incubation, restoration, and regeneration. If we can do it here, we can do it anywhere. And we're proving that daily.
You are proving that daily. Let me ask you a question. When you think about what you've accomplished to this point, and I know you've got a long road to hoe. You're not done. You're gonna roll, and you're gonna keep grinding. Absolutely,
dude,
every day.
I am just getting started.
I know you are. But just to frame up so people can get a clear understanding. We talked about a little bit earlier about what the Bronx was. We talked about some of the statistics. Tell me a little bit about, if you can, if you pull them off the top of your head, the statistics about your kids coming through this program, from a graduation rate now to what's happening going on to secondary school, college, et cetera. Any of your kids actually going into agriculture related fields? If you know,
absolutely.
Yes, talk about that a little bit, because I think that's really important.
I just came back from Indoor AgCon. I'm excited about World Agritech. Our students are now working at Gotham Greens. So we have graduates who are working at Gotham Greens. I have students who are in the Parks Department. I have students, I want to shout out both Whole Kids and Whole Foods Foundation, the Whole Kids Foundation and Whole Foods for hiring our kids and supporting our programs. I like to say the spinach is baked right into the ice cream. The proof is in the pudding. 2,200 jobs later, here we are. A school that was slated to be closed is now outperforming citywide, statewide benchmarks in every performance indicator. And that doesn't mean that we're done. It means we're just getting started.
Well, you're seeing the success.
Right. Earlier this year, we hosted the New York State Education Commissioner and the New York State Ag Commissioner in this very classroom, who called this a model to unify the state around healthy learning and healthy eating. So we're just getting started. And it's communities like ours. Listen, communities like ours are not only under-resourced, they're overexploited, if you will. Everybody comes in here looking to make a quick buck, to offer the solution. We got a lot of people coming, on white horses looking to come in and say, oh, we can do this for you. A lot of people have gotten very fat off the dysfunction of communities like mine across the country and around the world. And the bottom line is, we are the ones we're waiting for. Don't come in here on a high horse. Come here, move in, set up shop and do some serious work and then get back to me. And that's what this movement is all about.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, I don't think the world needs more armchair quarterbacks. We need people to get in the game.
Yeah, and we need people who are committed to the game. Listen, if you're making a living coming to my community, talking to me about financial literacy, guess what? You have like zero credibility to me. Live here, work here, stay here. That's what this is all about. I'm proud that our nimble organization, has grown from the Bronx to literally across the country. And we've done it with very small staffing. We've done it by being lean and mean and efficient and training trainers and getting people out of the way. It's not about 6-figure and 7-figure salaries and huge social media campaigns. It's really about impact. And that's what I'm most proud of. Impact and partnerships.
I love it. I want to talk a little bit about this bad boy. I want to talk a little bit about your book, The Power of Plants.
Okay. Well, please buy a copy. Go to the Green Bronx Machine website. You'll get a personally autographed copy, and 100% of the proceeds support the program. But the book, like me, is an accidental success. It's #1 bestseller on 5 different lists. Is pretty cool.
It's
I never even knew I was going to do it.
I want to talk about it a little bit. First of all, why'd you write it? Because, and I asked this question because, writing a book like this, it had to be very hard in some ways to be so open and honest about your life, right? Because it's almost, and I know, and this isn't this, but in some ways, just kind of frame it up at 35,000 feet. A story like this is very confessional, right? You're literally laying everything out, which is who you are. There's no mistaking who you are and what you believe. Trust me, the world knows that. But it had to be hard for you to sit down and say, I'm going to put this together, but I am going to be open about my life and very transparent.
Dude, honestly, it was pretty effing easy. I hate to break the model.
It's all right.
So I'll tell you what happened. Literally, I'm running to a meeting one day in Grand Central Station, a school meeting. Some woman stops me in the middle of Grand Central Station. She goes, "You're Steve Ritz." And I go, "Uh-oh, crazy lady." This
right, here it comes.
Is this a
your
bad
first groupie? What did you think it was a groupie?
No, I didn't know what it was. Listen, it's very humbling to be stopped. It's very humbling to be recognized. So I'm always grateful for that. Make no doubt about it. But she was just so confrontational about it. I wasn't expecting something good. I thought I just, she was just so matter of fact about it. And then she goes, listen, I follow you. I'm such a fan. Big sigh of relief. I follow you on Facebook. Okay, fine. My children are doing the Facebook account for me. I'm under my wife's supervision. Even better. And she goes, I'm a book agent. She goes, and I believe that you have a best-selling book waiting to happen. And I'm like, wow, that's very kind of you. Thank you so much.
Daffodils in Grand Central Station.
Great. I got to get going. You got to get going. Give me your card and I'll get back to you. I go home. I tell my wife, hey, Lizette, I met a crazy woman in the crazy but lovely at Grand Central Station. She says I should write a book. People have been telling me for years I should write a book. What do you think I should do? My wife, being both the brains and beauty of the family, takes the card and looks up the woman. It was my literary agent, Lynn Johnson, 29 New York Times bestsellers. I said, wow, maybe I should call this woman. Yeah. Seems like she knows what she's doing. Maybe she knows something I don't know. So I call up crazy lady Lynn. Hey, Lynn, it's Steve Ritz. So great to meet you. Tell me a little bit more about this thing. This sounds interesting. She says, can you do X, Y, and Z in the next 30 days? Get me an outline of what you'd like to talk about. And what do you think, what do you think people want to hear? I said, in the next 30 days, that's easy. I did it overnight. I got back to her the next day, and within 30 days, we had book offers from 6 or 7 publishing houses. And I used the pros. The book took off. It went viral. It's used in school districts around the country. People love it. It's about passion, purpose, and hope. Trust you me, I have a lot more stories and a lot more tell-all in the book. It was interesting because I was very blessed to have a wonderful co-author, my dear friend, Susie Boss. And, Susie was kind of the voice of reason. This book was written before I understood how to use track changes. I did the whole thing on an AOL account. And it was a series of text messages between my family members and I, my wife and I, and my daughter and I. So
Old school, baby, old school.
Oh, I'm about as old school as they come, baby. Some of it was handwritten, some of it was typewritten, some of it was sent as emails. Susie was able to, coalesce this. Also, I can get a little off topic. So Susie, kept sure that the strand was right. And literally, when it was time to edit the book, you're going to love this. We printed out 300 pages, laid them out on my floor, and I cut and paste with a scissor and Scotch tape to put the chapters back together in the order that I wanted. Took pictures of them, sent them to Susie, and the rest is history. But
I love it.
Trust you me, I've got plenty more stories to tell. And the goal of this book was really to bring people in under the tent. That if I can, you can. Now, trust you me, I got a lot of good stories and a lot of dirt on people. But if I were to go out there and write a tell-all book, it would seem like I'm being vindictive or, I'm trying to be opportunistic. And that's not who I am. Being honest about my life was absolutely critical. Letting people know where I stand and where I don't stand is great. But trust you me, there's a lot more good stories to come. And, I'm thinking about a new book as we speak. But
I love it.
Far more importantly, I'm excited about the documentary, part of which was based on the book. And part of it was actually shown as Green Bronx Machine moved from being, some people think it's a cult of me. Look, I'm a big personality and a charming guy in a cheese hat with green shoes. But what we did with the curriculum is set up something that is scalable, low cost, and replicable. And to see this thing move across the country with similar success in all kinds of communities is absolutely the story I'm most excited about telling and the work that I'm most interested in continuing to do.
Yeah, for sure. Well, reading the book, it's impactful, and I can't highly recommend it enough for people to sit down and make it a part of it.
Buy a copy,
no doubt. But one of the most impactful moments to me that really gave me a moment of pause as a parent and as a citizen was when you were describing standing on the sidewalk at Community School 55 and greeting each child personally and offering up what you called your 2-5, 2 eyes and 5 fingers. And, exactly. And my question is, how important did that become to the kids every day, getting such appreciation? I mean, it had to change them in some way.
Listen, kids, in some ways, I've tried to move away from this cheese hat, which is a story in and of itself.
Yeah, you can't get rid of the cheese hat.
Kids love it. Who doesn't want to be acknowledged? Who doesn't want to be appreciated? Realize this. I grew up in a world where we loved people and used things. Sadly, fast forward 50 some odd years later, we live in a world where we love things and use people. So when I can stand on a doorstep and validate you and it doesn't cost anything and look you in the eyes and tell you your life is okay and I'm here to help you, that's a great place to start. Yeah. That's the beginning for what I call relationships. And understand something, that's what this book and my work is all about, relationships. There's a lot of transactional things that go on in education and in nonprofit work, and I don't necessarily believe in them. I believe in the building of fundamental relationships. I stay in touch with almost all the children I've had. I'm so excited. I've had the same cell phone number, the same phone number for the rest of my life. I've had the same phone number my entire life. It doesn't change, nor should it change. So I try to be as open and as accessible as I can be to as many people as possible. And to think that, we've had visitors from around the world come to the classroom in the South Bronx is remarkable.
It is indeed. I mean, your whole journey is remarkable. When you went through that every morning with those kids and, and you're pumping up their tires and starting their day off with, a source of encouragement and starting their day off with positivity, at some point, that had to become incredibly important to you as well. I would imagine that those kids, seeing that transformation of those kids from day one to, how many days in school, 100 and however many days it is, you had to see a transformation, not only in them, but in yourself as well. I mean, that had to be a huge source of encouragement back.
Thanks for joining the Todd-versation. And now, a word from our sponsor. This episode of Todd-versations is brought to you by Viva Tierra. Viva Tierra, organic to the core. Connect with us at vivatierra.com.
Well, there's been a couple of transformations in my life. First of all, my own eating habits and my own health. I've not always been this attractive, sexy guy. At one point, 10 years ago, I was 330 pounds. As much work as I was doing with kids, I was eating myself to death. The reason the cheese had evolved is because the kids called me the big cheese. I was long before I had the cheese hat. I was a big guy. I was 330 pounds eating extra cheese pizza 3 or 4 times a day with kids with a big 44-ounce soda in my hand. It took a heart condition, diabetes, and a free cirrhotic liver, along with a terrible medical incident that happened in school where I almost died, to get me to a point where I realized I should stop eating myself to death. And that was a pivotal point. Now here at CS55, the kids can't even believe I was 300 pounds. I have children who can't even imagine what it looks like to see me with a soda in my hand. One of the greatest stories that I have is, in the middle of the pandemic, we opened up the schoolyard for kids to come in and to be distant, during a real tough time 2 summers ago. And then kids started bringing other kids. And in the middle of the day, one kid turns to me and says, "Mr. Ritz, it's so hot. Can you buy me a soda?" And one of my little guys turned around and said, "You're asking Mr. Ritz to buy you a soda? Asking Mr. Ritz for a soda is like asking your mama for a cigarette. It's not going to happen." That's the kind of impact I like to have.
I love that. Schools, schools should be not be content. There's something you said. Schools should not be content with educating children. They need to uplift and empower families and communities. That's a very, very powerful statement. And I think that it's interesting to me, that statement, because I think that it goes back to what is the true responsibility that we have to our kids through the education process. Not this clouded, not, some of the crazy stuff that we hear, some of the things we're trying to implement. I mean, all this different kind of stuff. I mean, they're incredibly powerful words. And it's something I know that you truly live by with what you've done. Can you share a little bit about what that means to you? And I asked this question because I want to set that question up, because I want to get in to the classroom curriculum and really dive into what you're doing for everybody on this planet. So if you wouldn't mind taking that question first and then lead into that.
Let me be clear. The greatest lever this nation has for equity and inclusion is public education. I'll say that again in case people didn't hear. The greatest lever this nation has for equity, inclusion, and opportunity is public education. We are the heartbeats of so many communities. The only way you're going to level the field is by fielding good players. It's not about after school programs. It's not about nonprofit work. It is about literacy. It is about understanding opportunity. And it is about equipping kids with the skills so that they can compete with others, with wealthier kids, with other kids. And most importantly, to bring families along with them. Because in communities like mine, we are chronically undereducated. We're chronically underemployed. I have parents, people think, oh, communities like mine, everyone's on welfare. That's not true. You have parents and communities and immigrants working 3, 4, 5 jobs, some of them making $6, $7, $8 an hour. Imagine that, to send their kids to school. And we're chasing dreams that don't really exist. So schools, the greatest lever we have is education. That is going to create the greatest opportunities for children to leave and learn and come back and make an impact and stay right here and build businesses and build infrastructure and create opportunities and be the next generation of students and teachers and community advocates. For me, obviously the work is about feeding children. Obviously the work is about growing minds. But really, what do I want? I want the next generation of social and environmental justice advocates, equity warriors, and you grow that right here in school. So when my third graders get upset when they found out that a fast food franchise, and we have yet another one in this community, did not pay their workers more for tomatoes, and children learned how hard it is to grow tomatoes, they were really upset. And I said, great. They go, Mr. Ritz, it's not fair. And I'm like, you're 100% right. It is not fair. So what are you going to do about it? And believe it or not, my kids organized a great boycott of that new store, and they've stayed out. And every time I keep a burger out of their belly and replace it with a banana, a piece of citrus, or some locally grown fruits and vegetables, it's a victory for them and the planet and the world. So for me, this work is about equity. It's about opportunity.
Absolutely. And
we don't need more nonprofits. And let me be clear about that. And I don't want to knock nonprofit work, but the work that I'm doing should not be the exception. It should be the norm. It should be the standard. And that's why we created curriculum, so that it's a build-in for schools as opposed to an add-on, because that to me is absurd.
Well, look, let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, you have come up with what is the Green Bronx Machine classroom curriculum. It's 241 pages of teaching.
No, it's 303 pages. The first part is 241. Those are the lesson plans. Then there's the supplemental materials, the manipulatives, the consumables, and all the other assessment and exit tickets. So it's actually well over 300 pages.
Well, that's what I said, over 300. I said 241, but that was French for over 300.
Gotcha. You did your work. The first 241 pages are all the lesson plans. So good job.
Yeah, exactly.
You're in the park.
Thank you. So talk to me a little bit about what it's about. Let's frame this up, because we've got the world listen to us today on this broadcast, and I want people to understand that it is sitting there. It is available. Your heart is poured out into this curriculum.
Dude,
the fact that it's there, it is.
Here.
Right. Talk about it.
So again, I didn't want to be the salad guy. I didn't want to be the garden guy. How do we equip now more than ever struggling teachers and struggling schools with the tools and systems they need to create systemic change? And that starts with curriculum. It doesn't start with me coming in after school and say, let's grow a garden or having a salad party. Listen, that's fun. It's important, but that's not going to put kids in college. What's going to put kids in college is performing well on standardized tests. What's going to put kids in college, and not the tests are the be all. Trust me, they're not. These tests are important, but my children are far more than the sum of their data. My children are living, breathing things who need to understand how to compete with their peers fairly, equitably, and collegially. And a lot of that is lost in the sauce here. So for me, this is an all-you-can-eat buffet. It is the art and science of growing vegetables aligned to Common Core, next generation science standards, P21, the Sustainable Development Goals. I think the greatest compliment in the world is that, look, the State University of New York uses this curriculum to train teachers in scoped and scaffolded and sequenced instruction in all content areas. Our number one client are principals who have teachers who need to see models of lesson plans, models of evaluation, models of rubrics, models of exit tickets. How do you have data-driven instruction? That's what this is all about. And the hook is, guess what? I do it in class with a really cool garden, and kids get excited about it. Most importantly, every 35 days, not only to have happy, healthy kids, you got a lot of food that you can eat or sell or share. So it's really been a blessing. And listen, project-based learning is where it's at now more than ever post-COVID. Kids are so screamed out, so attentionally deficient and defective that putting something that they can touch, taste, smell, assemble, and take care of in their classroom every day and work collaboratively with young colleagues upon is absolutely awesome sauce. And even if they're sharing the food with senior citizens, it's an amazing thing. Look, I have kids who are growing prescriptive microgreens for 30 seniors who are recovering from cancer and food insecure. And for these little guys to grow food as medicine for these seniors who are the eyes and ears of their community is game changing. And that's what school is all about.
What a lesson.
So many levels.
Well, what a lesson these kids are getting, right? And you guys do a lot of community work. I mean, you're giving, you give away food bags, you send food home with kids, you've got a food stand. I mean, you guys are going full circle on, giving love, getting love, keeping it moving nonstop. So when
listen, we're not the biggest, but we try to be the best at what we can do. And it's rooted in a couple of things. Number one, no one can do everything, but everyone can do something. And I'm asking people to do something, and that's get a little love. The other thing is you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start in order to be great. So we're asking people to start, do one simple thing. Listen, our response to the pandemic crushed a lot of organizations. Spiritually and emotionally, it crushed us. And let me be clear, this was the absolute epicenter in New York City of the pandemic, the towers of doom. You are twice as likely to die of COVID here than anywhere else in New York City. Literally, we had a funeral every week for 2 weeks here. It's tough to tell kids their teacher has died. It's tough for children to see their loved ones pass away. We literally had morgue trucks in the park. That's a tough thing to grow up with and grow up around. So post-pandemic, we responded. We responded in some Herculean ways. We distributed over 100,000 pounds of food. My wife and I, in this community, we turned our schoolyard into a supermarket and literally, put groceries out there every week, and not junk food, but healthy food.
Right.
And in vaccine-resistant communities, listen, I'm vaccinated. putting it out there, and I believe in the vaccine. But if you're vaccine resistant, it is simple medical fact. The best way to boost your immunity is through the consumption of fresh fruits and vegetables. And we were determined to do that. And we got it out there each and every day. When the school started and kids didn't even have access to the internet, I took to the buildings. I stood outside of buildings and was screaming at the windows, just like I'm screaming to you now. We launched a social media campaign. We even launched a TV show called Let's Learn with Mr. Ritz. 2 million views, and the kids helped create it. I get thousands of letters now from people who love Leslie the Ladybug, Patty the Pigeon, and learning about our big word alerts. This is the kind of stuff that is all community-based, and it goes to show you we are the ones we are waiting for. It's about us. If not us, who? And if not now, when?
When? Yeah, 100%. Look, and teachers around the globe, go online, go check out the curriculum. It's there. You don't have to have a special handshake or password. You press the button and you say purchase, and it's there, and it comes to you, and you keep funding this amazing story.
And the amazing thing is, right now, let me be clear. I want to shout out a couple of organizations. Look at Quest Diagnostics, bringing our program to schools across the country. The Whole Kids Foundation loves to pay for our program in schools. It's data-driven. I want to shout out Newman's Own. Perhaps you've seen the amazing greenhouse that we built in tiny homes for foster care children in Appalachia. So this work is contagious. Green Bronx Machine was built to be low cost. It was built to be scalable. It was built to be replicable. To think that, our curriculum is designed with no tiered fees, no annual subscriptions. We manage the data. You get professional development. This is the kind of disruption that really speaks to opportunity where it is needed most. Yeah. And, the degree to which we resist injustice is the degree to which we are all free. So this work is really about creating justice.
Yeah. Amazing. I got to tell you, you are something. And you are truly, and I'm going to be very candid when I say this, you're really an inspiration and a hero to me. To get to know you a little bit. No, I
haven't even had my coffee yet, man.
Well, it's a little earlier out here on the West Coast for me, so I'm gonna let you know I did have mine. But you inspire me. Your book inspired me. Your work inspired me. Getting to know you has inspired me. And all I can do is tell people over and over and over again to lean into what you're doing, read, get involved. Because it's so incredibly powerful. It's a game changer. And the fact of the matter is that you've done so much heavy lifting to prove what communities around the world, not just this country, but around the world can do to make a difference. And if we start with kids and we go back to the fact that, we need to build better global citizens to make a better planet. And we start with kids and throw the love and throw the energy at them and do things along the lines that you're doing. The transformation, you can't even stop the transformation. Because it could be anybody. It could be anything.
Listen, biology happens. People are inherently built for success. We just have to point them in the right direction. We need to stop monetizing our children. We need to stop looking at children of epicenters of profit, getting them hooked on brands and marketing and messaging. But we need to teach children that each and every day they vote with their mouth, their fork, their wallet, and what they do in school.
Absolutely.
And that actions are far more important than items. It's what you do who determines what you are, not what you own. And, for people who are out there, let me be clear, this work is hard. This work is hard. Make no doubt about it, but it's incredibly rewarding. And It really requires a certain amount of courage. I think I refer to it as testicular fortitude.
Absolutely it is.
If you're not pissing people off, you're not working hard enough. But the opposite of courage is not cowardice. The opposite of courage to me is conformity, because even a dead fish can go with the flow, and we are not dead fish. So I want everyone to get out there and swim, and keep swimming.
I agree. I got one final question for you before we end our time here. And you said something that it's easier to raise healthy children than fix broken men. This is one of the most, I think, powerful statements that I've heard you say. It carries a lot of weight with me, and it really made me stop. It's incredibly true, and it made me pause. So my question to you is this, and this is a tough one, I think, for you to answer. If you could just only give the world one piece of advice related to that statement, what do you think it would be?
Show up daily.
Boom. Drop the Sharpie, kids. Drop the Sharpie on that.
Show up daily, man. You got to be there. Don't preach it, do it.
Yeah, I love it. Folks, Stephen, I love you, man. You're such an inspiration. Green Bronx Machine, 501c3 kids, step up, right? Let's get online. Bring this curriculum up inside your schools. Parents, go tell your teacher about it.
Yeah, grab a book, grab a kid's book, order a T-shirt, get a bow tie.
Get on the merch store. I'm getting a bow tie.
Yeah, hey, everybody who's watching, please order Todd a bow tie and send it to him. He'd love to hear it. We've got hundreds of them. The kids make them. So we're delighted to get you a bow tie. But you can follow us on social. If you like what you heard, share it.
Yeah.
That to me, sometimes your greatest contribution is your voice. So, not everyone can make a donation, but everyone can share their voice and share their thoughts. Please follow me and the organization on LinkedIn. We try and keep it positive. We try and keep it moving, and we try to keep it cordial. And that's what this is all about. And remember, you are what you eat.
Let's grow the network. Right? Let's grow the network. Thank you for being here today.
Check out the trailer for our documentary. It's on the website. Yep. For sure. Generation Growth. It's up there on the website. We're super excited, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, everybody, for being here today on Todd-versations. I hope this inspired you. I say it all the time. Go inspire somebody. It's an easy thing to do, and you can make such a positive difference in this world. If you can't find a little inspiration from hanging out with Stephen Ritz, I don't know where your valve stem is. I'll come find it. We'll pump it up a little harder or something, because this guy is just infectious to be around, and I'm grateful that I got to know him, and he's my friend. And much love back to you, my brother. This platform is yours at your full disposal.
You heard?
I'm coming.
You gotta come visit. We got a salad waiting for you right here. We're growing it as we speak, right in the class.
I love it. I'm coming. Don't worry. The invitation is accepted, and count on it. We want to come and we want to be a big supporter of what you're doing, because I just absolutely truly love it. From the
Bronx to the world, se puede, and see you soon.
See you soon. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ciao.